sorry about the late start. We had some changes in our schedule, but super quickly, I wanted to introduce Claire Pentecost, who's an exhibiting artist in the Refiguring the Future exhibition at 205 Hudson. She's going to give a short intro and a reading to her new book co-written with Martha Pentecost, The Spirit of the Water Bear. And Claire Pentecost is an artist, writer, and educator. Her projects often address the contested line between the natural and the artificial, focusing on food, agriculture, bioengineering, and anthropogenic changes. Pentecost has shown work in a number of numerous exhibitions and venues, including Documenta 13 Castle, the 13th Istanbul Biennial, the DePaul Art Museum Chicago, and the 3rd Land Art Mongolia Biennial. She's a founding member of Deep Time Chicago and Watershed Art and Ecology. She's a professor at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. And also please stop by the exhibition where you can pick up a copy of The Spirit of the Water Bear, and I'll turn it back over to Claire.
Thank you to Lola and to Idan and to all the organizers that are clearly working their butts off. So just a few words about this book. This is my first novel, and I had such a good time writing it. I hope it's not my last. And I wrote it with my sister, who has done a lot of writing. And we wrote it in 4 months. Because I don't know, I had done this big project last year in the spring, and it just completely wore me out, and I was depressed all summer and said, I'm not making art anymore. I'm done. I'm just done. And then I got this idea like in October or September, and I wrote Heather immediately. And I said, okay, my contribution to the show is going to be a young adult novel about climate change. And she was like, great. And then I had to do it, right? And so I tell you that we wrote it in 4 months just to give you the context. But my excuse for that is it's really such an urgent issue that I kind of feel like everything has become sort of urgent now. It's set in a fictional town on the Carolina coast, which is a place where I've spent a lot of time when I was growing up. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. And so I spent a couple of weeks down there getting the setting right. Okay, so I'm going to start at the beginning. Oh, let me get my water. Oh, here it is. Yeah, I'm definitely going to need water. And remember, this is a young adult novel because that's the age. That's the age. And I have my pencil because there's typos. Okay. Juni was happy to be out of school for the summer, out in the real world taking action, and outside, her favorite place to be. She and Portia leaned on the hood of her Aunt Rosa's dust-colored Honda, dust-colored and usually dust-covered, as Rosa lamented, trying to keep it shiny in this town built on sand. They'd driven instead of riding bikes because Portia had gotten her license, and Rosa said she could take the car, and they just had to get in the car, the two of them, and drive away. They could have gone anywhere. They came to the port to demonstrate against the building of a gas pipeline terminal in Three Rivers. Everyone here looks really old. Portia was in a mood, which wasn't unusual. Kids who didn't know Portia thought she was high and mighty, but that was because her cheekbones were just the beginning of her beauty, and she carried herself like a princess. She had just gotten back from a school year with her dad and stepmother way up north far away from any ocean in the huge city of Chicago, where she'd done ballet 5 days a week. Juni wasn't sure how Portia felt about their hometown now, but put off her worries about this, just like she put off acknowledging Portia's mood. This is a protest, Portia. It's always like old hippies. I went to anti-police violence demos in Chicago. They have a lot more people our age. And their moms, Juni reminded her. Portia's face crashed. The poor moms. Juni was sorry she'd brought it up. Her own mom had a son to worry about, and now for different reasons. Her eyes fell on a woman at the edge of the gathering crowd who greeted a friend and hugged, tipping from side to side. The woman looked similar to her mom in age and curviness. On the back of her faded orange hoodie, 2 hearts linked together in a web of ornamented lines that spelled out, lifelines, not pipelines. This only brought her brother Titus more painfully to Juni's mind. There was no lifeline for his disease. All they could do was love him as he lost the use of his muscles. Juni looked away, looked for the Loblolly River, but the river was lower than the parking lot, and the scattered people and cars blocked the view. She knew it was there because most of the decaying pavement below her feet was covered in sand that the river had brought all the way up here during last year's unprecedented storms. Nowadays, if a high tide coincided with a full moon or with hardy winds from the southeast, the Loblolly just might rise and spread another layer of sand over the lot. A woman nearby wore a cap with a skirt around the back to shield her neck from the sun. Portia shook her head at the fashions people would stoop to. Why do only old hippies care about global warming? They're probably going to die before it gets really bad. First of all, Juni started one of her numbered lists. It's already bad. And second, these people have been protesting all their lives about one thing after another. To them, this is doing something about the crazy mess. You say that like it's not really doing something about it. We have to try, Portia. Juni pushed away from the car to face her cousin. Her irises were such a dark blue they looked black, or maybe the pupils were huge with outrage. I mean, what if nobody made any noise about all the criminal activities of the jerks in power? That would be super scary. Really, imagine everybody just sucking that up. She waited. A flicker in her face showed the effort she made to give Portia time to imagine such a disastrous condition. She backed off and leaned again beside Portia. And 3, it would mean everyone has just given up. Maybe they have, Portia said. This crowd is pathetic, if you could call it a crowd. In the 5 Saturdays Juni had come to the pipeline protest, she had thought there were more people there, maybe because she'd been inside the cluster of concerned citizens and not out on the edge of the lot, looking at them through Portia's eyes. Look, Portia, there's a friend of my sister's, so that would mean around 30 years old. Spring chicken. Juni examined the crowd more closely. To her, the crowd represented a decent variety of ages and walks of life, mostly white, but some were people of color. She always recognized a few folks from around town. She saw people who worked at the clinic with her mom and a young man she had met at the Buddhist place where her dad was caretaker. Mr. Jagers, the teller at the bank, was there with the 2 of his kids. Look at that troop in matching t-shirts. Juni couldn't make out what the shirt said. See them, blue? Didn't some of them just graduate from Tullahoma? I wasn't here. Oh, Portia. Oh, wait a minute. What the hell is that? Juni scrambled up on the car's hood. Down on the left, near the small guardhouse at the gate to the port, was a group of what looked like very large and very padded robots. Are those cops? Where? Over there. They're in all kinds of black padding. Their helmets are huge and black, and you can't see their faces. They look like football players at a funeral. Portia was about to join Juni on the hood, but Juni yelled out to someone in the crowd, "Hey, Pete." A very big guy standing in a knot of people clapped his hand on a companion's shoulder before making a beeline towards them. He wore overalls and his sandy hair stuck out around the edges of a John Deere gimme cap. "Hi, Juni, who's this?" Juni jumped down from the hood. My cousin, Portia. Portia, this is Pete Pettigrew. He's one of the organizers. He worked against the Keystone Pipeline, too. But what's up with the bionic police? In Chicago, we call them robo-cops. Portia folded her arms across her chest, owning her worldly experience. Pete turned to search for the police. Robo-cops, that's funny. Is it? Said Juni. I think it's frightful. I don't know why they're here. Pete glanced at Portia, then at Juni, then peered over their heads at the cops. It could mean they expect trouble. Why would they expect trouble? Juni asked. Maybe our demands are making somebody uncomfortable. Maybe this is a good sign. Well, have you seen them before? Juni persisted, like at other pipeline protests. Pete lowered his gaze to her face without moving his head. This made him look sneaky, which was so out of character for Pete that Juni almost laughed. I can't imagine they're going to trounce us. We haven't damaged any property these past Saturdays or even threatened to. Seems like bringing out the cannons for a cloud of mosquitoes, quipped Portia. I will not take offense that you call us mosquitoes. Pete's laugh was squeaky. Portia was laughing too. Juni changed the subject. Have you seen any press? Just cell phones so far. I posted a press release and called the Tribune. Pete waved to a woman carrying a bundle of signs. He took two from her as she approached. Here you go. I'm so glad you're here, Portia. I hope we'll be seeing you out here with Juni on Saturday mornings. Portia looked at her cousin. Juni comes every Saturday? I'd say we've started to expect her. I never know what to expect from her. Juni fluttered her poster. You and your big city expertise will be quite the asset here in Three Rivers. Pete nodded. The summer is crucial. We need to create awareness before the public hearing in September. Everybody counts. What, will we be doing a body count? Portia feigned alarm. Pete laughed a little bit like someone imitating a donkey. We just want to get a sense of how many people show up, but don't you worry, it's not a war, not much really happens here. As he squinted at the police still huddled together near the port entrance, his cell phone vibrated. Come on, ladies, let's get out there with the masses. He answered his phone and walked back into the crowd. Portia looked at the printed, laminated sign in her hand. Three Rivers Port Terminal. Terminal. And on the other side, sure, we can have it all, but our children get nothing. Yeah, Juni said, let's stop being bystanders with the criticism for every effort made by the last good people in the county. Give me a break, Portia moaned. I swear you're always gaming some language for the school paper. It was true. Since Juni had made the newspaper, she'd taken to making a running commentary on their lives. But that's a good thing, right? We have to publicize any resistance to these mendacious energy companies. Even if this is a lame event, we have to write it up so other people who are freaking out can see they aren't alone. For starters, you can't use the word lame anymore for things that are pitiful because some people really are lame. And mendacious? Yes, mendacious. Remember the old guy in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof? He was always yelling about mendacity. That would be dishonesty. I know what it means, Juni. Well, they lie. They know that burning oil and gas causes global warming. We're all cats on a hot roof, and I'm about to have a heat stroke. Those cops must have air conditioning in their armor. The girls had ambled into the crowd of people holding signs and were talking over the chanting. Whose earth? Our earth. Juni raised her voice, adding her own words. Whose earth? Our earth. Whose earth? Your earth. Whose earth? Turtle's earth. Portia hesitated. She lifted her sign higher, thrust it in time with the chant. Juni watched her cousin from the corner of her eye. Everybody's earth, enough to share, be peaceful about. Juni, Portia raised her voice above the din. Your protesters need to get on the same page. Half of them are chanting something else. Juni shrugged. Stop being so hard on us. At least everybody's yelling. Hold up. Portia grabbed Juni's arm. Just stop, Juni. Listen. Juni focused our ears on the words in the air. Behind the mix of shouts near her, there was a strong chorus of deep voices. Whose jobs? Our jobs. She couldn't locate them. There was a quick pop, then another. Was that a gun? Juni grabbed Portia by the arm. They bent down together reflexively. The people around them crouched. A few dropped to the ground. Another pop. People yipped in alarm. Something whizzed in the air and people ducked lower. Whose jobs? Our jobs. Get down, someone shrieked. Fireworks. A whiz followed by a pop. Rockets. They're shooting bottle rockets. The crowd moved this way and that, all different directions, and halting. It wasn't clear where to move. Whiz, whiz, pop. Can you see where they're coming from? Portia's voice was breathless. Juni held her sign in front of her and poked her head around it. Juni, don't. But Portia came up behind her own sign. Beyond the row of cops were a few people with red cloth over their faces and red shirts. The girls ducked as a bottle rocket hissed in their direction. Are those red shirt guys doing that? Juni asked. Where are the cops? They're in front of the red shirt, said Portia. Yeah, but why aren't they doing anything to stop them? Now a more concerted movement ran through the crowd. The girls peeked around their signs. A cop, burly in his gear, was plowing into the crowd. He knocked a sign out of a woman's hand and grasped her arm. Everybody, get down! On the ground now! He pushed the lady down and she fell on her hands and knees. A scattershot of rockets came from behind him. As soon as these were passed, Juni dipped her sign and screamed at the policeman, Stop! The guys throwing rockets are behind you. I said get down. Another officer had come in closer. Sit down and put your hands on your head. Demonstrators were dropping to the ground, their arms over their heads to shield themselves from the hissing projectiles. A few tried to run. One of these was caught in the black, oversized arms of an officer, and they locked briefly in a lopsided dance. Some people sat in the sand as they were told to, and Juni could see that there wasn't just a straight line of police in front of them. Instead, the line curved around the sides. Maybe it went all the way around. Maybe the protesters were completely surrounded by the cops. Just a few feet in front of her, a cop caught hold of the woman in the orange hoodie. He punched his captive's shoulder blade while he pulled her hands behind her back and tightened a big zip tie around her wrists. She let out a sharp yelp and started to buckle, but another cop caught her. Juni needed to act. Where was Pete? Let's go, Portia. The cops were weighed down by armor, and the girls were light and quick. Surely they could dart through the cops. Juni leaped forward, caught on something, and went down. She tripped on an old man cowering beside her. Had she tripped him? I'm so sorry. Then she saw a black wound on his upper back. A rocket must have hit him and exploded, melting a hole in his aqua shirt. She smelled the burning synthetic and something sickening. He was wailing. Help, we need help here. She tried again to regain her balance, but was yanked away from the wounded man as he fell onto the sand. A cop seized her by one arm and jerked her around to catch hold of the other. Instinctively, she twisted away. That man is hurt. Still, the cop went after her other arm. He was awkward. She swung around his bulk to keep her arm out of reach. Then she heard a distant thud. In the sudden silence, a bright light surrounded her, and she felt strangely euphoric. She sensed an alphabet swirling around her head, too close to see clearly. She pulled her mind back. It hurt to look at. She pulled back again, and numbers came into focus. It looked like a badge. Grim R1216. The light faded, and a dark cloud seeped into Juni's field of vision. She was sure she was in the family room at home, lying on her stomach on the coffee table and staring too closely at the TV. She tried to hold on to the elated feeling, but her head throbbed. She squeezed her eyes shut more tightly. Hey, get a medic over here, a man's voice, gravelly. We don't want a lawsuit on our hands. Without stirring, she tried to get her bearings. This was not her family room. She was pretty sure she was outdoors, lying on the ground. The image of a policeman's badge was still clear in her head, grim, R1216. She repeated it to herself silently. Someone lifted her hand and held it lightly by the wrist. Then she remembered Portia had been there. "Portia," she said under her breath. "Can you get her out of here?" the gravel voice snarled. "Hey, that's my cousin." Portia was panting. "What happened to her?" "Get down," said the rough voice. "No, wait." Another man, his voice almost gentle. "This will go better if she has some family with her." "She's yours then. Get them out of here." A soft hand expertly opened one of Juni's eyes and shone a little flashlight into it. "Ouch!" She blinked both eyes open and saw a pair of dark eyes peering at her from a kindly brown face. Green scrubs, a medic. "Anybody home in there?" The light shone in her other eye. She winced and shut her lids. "Your name, please?" "What's happening?" She heard commotion, but the sunlight was excruciating. "It looks like you managed to get yourself a concussion. We're going to the county where they can take pictures of the inside of your head." "Name and birthday?" Shouts, scrambling. Louisa Bell Poole." She touched the side of her head and found a growing lump. Grit was pasted into the hair and skin, but there was no open wound. August 26. Her head was thick. Everything was thick. 2002. "She sounds funny." Portia brushed sand from Juni's hair with a light touch. "And what's today?" The medic pressed her. Saturday, June something." "That'll do." His hands slid beneath her shoulders. Someone gripped her ankles, and she was lifted up, shifted to the side, and laid down again. She knew she was now on a stretcher. She squinted and glimpsed a young woman in scrubs at her feet. She put her hand out, and Portia took it. She laid her other arm across her eyes, careful not to press the side of her head that hurt the most. Her arm hurt. "But there's an old guy." The words came out slurred and slow, but she kept talking. "He got brunt." That was wrong. She tried to sit up. "Just let us do our job." The medic kindly restrained her. "We need to get you out of here without you making things worse." "But I can walk." Juni tried to protest through the haze. "Not with your eyes closed," said Portia. "Why isn't she opening her eyes?" "But the lady with the lifelines, not pipelines." Portia shook Juni's hand. "Juni, will you just let us get out of here?" The medic laughed. "Does she feel responsible for everyone?" "I saw people getting hurt," Juni said. "Why isn't she talking right?" said Portia. "That's just her mind catching up with events. She should get straight soon." He touched Juni's shoulder. "Maybe you're destined to be a doctor yourself." They hoisted the stretcher onto a gurney and started rolling. Guys playing football got concussions all the time. Why were they making such a big deal of this? But the pain in her head was real. "Portia, please tell me what happened, please." "Oh my God, she's gonna be okay," Portia said to the medics. "That's the double please we got from our geometry teacher. Now would you please shut up, please, you idiot? The EMT guy said you should be quiet." When did he say that? Juni didn't remember that. Maybe they had taken over Portia's mind and she was in on this, what was it exactly? "Portia, is that really you?" The words felt heavy in her mouth. "No, Dorothy, it's Auntie M." The gurney stopped and the stretcher glided into the back compartment of the ambulance. "What's your name?" Portia asked the medic. "Me? I'm Gabriel." "Like the angel," murmured Juni. Portia and Gabriel looked at each other and stifled their impulse to laugh. They climbed into the ambulance. "Hey now, don't go to sleep on me." Gabe touched her cheek. Juni roused. "Are they arresting those guys in red shirts?" "Oh, I don't see anything at these skirmishes. Otherwise, I'd be in court all day long, witnessing for the prosecution, witnessing for the defense." Even if the cops are acting like thugs. Juni's voice didn't rise at the end of her questions. Let's just say not every battle has to be my battle, and if I didn't stay on good terms with the police, it would be a lot harder to do my job, you see? I get that, said Portia. You don't take sides, Juni muttered. I take the side of whoever got themselves a goose egg on the head. I didn't get myself a nag. Juni's mind groped for the details of what had happened, but she could remember only the biggest, simplest thing. Do you take the side of the planet? No one needs more help than the planet. Nobody can save anybody if we don't. Portia squeezed Juni's hand. Will you please be quiet, please? That has to be everybody's battle. When they arrived at the hospital, Juni's mother was waiting for them. A lot of people at the hospital knew Lou. She was a nurse practitioner and midwife. Lou's massive hair was too much for any clasp to restrain for long, so that a thick amber spray of it was usually visible around one side of her face or another. When she saw her, Juni started crying like the time she was lost at the Christmas parade, and didn't cry until at last she saw the familiar being. Mom, Juni sobbed. A nurse was setting up an IV in her left hand. The pain had subsided, so at least Juni could open her eyes. Are you okay, baby? Lou sat down on the edge of the bed. You don't look so good. Let me look at your eyes. These guys were throwing bottle rockets. I saw a man get hit. Lou took her free hand and massaged it gently like she had ever since Juni could remember. And Portia, are you okay? Just a little worried about this nutcase. Who was throwing bottle rockets? These people in red shirts and masks. Portia actually looked a little shaken. I think they were devils. Weren't the police there? Yeah, but they started it on the protesters, and the devils ran away. Everyone was trying to run away, but it was over fast. I think the police were arresting people, but the medic said I should ride with Juni. Did you see what happened to her? Portia shook her head. I was just trying to duck. I saw the badge, said Juni. Grimm, R1216. Isn't her voice weird? Portia didn't listen to what Juni was saying. Lou nodded, flat. That's common after a concussion. Juni, do you really think you remember the details of a badge? People who get knocked out don't usually remember much about what happened to them. I saw the badge in the dream I was having. Look up the officer. His name is Grimm. Portia pulled her phone out of her bag to note this. Juni closed her eyes and recited slowly and emphatically, as though she were reading. R1216 GRIMM. Got it. The hospital rehydrated her and decided the concussion was mild and sent her home with instructions to rest and take Tylenol if the pain continued. By the time they climbed the steps to the front porch, the afternoon sun was slanting through the masses of hanging potted ferns growing as a shade along the western side. God, I miss this porch, said Portia. This must be the deepest porch in town. She looked up at the 3 ceiling fans and the tin tiles painted blue. It was cool and inviting, with big cushions on the wicker furniture and on the glider. The pools even had lamps outside so they could sit out reading late or turn off to foil the bugs while talking lazy talk. Juni's older brother, Titus, was sitting in one of the generous armchairs. He pulled off his headphones. You thought I was getting too much attention and decided to compete with me, huh? Juni started to cry again. Hey, sister, you don't look so good. So I'm told. Juni sniffed. She stepped into the entry hall to check herself in a mirror and let out a wail. Oh, my hair, and look at my face. Getting attention has its price, said Titus. He spoke to his mother. I know she's upset, but I'm not hearing the pain. Lack of affect. Lou straightened the pile of books on the brass tray that served as a tabletop. Common after a head bump. She should be back to her usual expressive self soon. She needs to rest, so let's help with that. All right, now you get to keep me company, me and your 500 canaries. 3 canaries, Juni whistled softly into the cage, which was bigger than a refrigerator turned on its side. Hey, Papageno. Hi, Ludacris. Hello, Bowie. If she spoke to one, she had to speak to them all. Why aren't they singing, said Portia. They're getting ready to molt, said Juni. They have to use their energy to grow new feathers. She felt her own energy was shriveled up somewhere she hadn't decided to put it. She drifted back onto the porch where she kept her turtles. Hey, Groucho. Hey, Frodo. Did anybody feed the Groucho Frodo today? You did. I saw you this morning, said Titus. Juni chose a stationary chair rather than the glider and eased into it. I can't remember anything. I'm already sick of being sick. Titus smiled his crooked smile, and his dark eyes caught the light. I guess not all of us are fit to malinger. I'm sorry, Titus. I don't know what I'm saying. I was going to fry chicken tonight, Lou intervened, but I'll make chicken soup instead. It's too hot for soup, Juni and Portia protested in unison. Never too hot for chicken soup. Titus, I need you to watch her. And Portia, would you call Juni's dad? See if he can come over and mind the broth if I get it started. I really need to get back to the clinic. Yes, ma'am. Portia walked down the stairs onto the yard to call Ezra. I can handle the soup, Titus said. Maybe so, but your dad needs to come over here and spend some time with Juni. Right. And I'm sure he wants to see you too. You don't know that. Yes, I do. It's one of those secrets that only parents share. Portia came back up the steps. He said he can mind the soup. He got a job lately, right? It sounded like I woke him up. Juni tucked her legs beneath her. Dispatching or something. His hours change all the time. Nobody can wake him up, said Titus. That's because he's already woke. Juni almost smiled. Portia stood behind her and began to work her shoulders with her hands. I like Uncle Ezra. He's nice. That's right. Lou came back out of the house. You should be grateful to have such a nice father. Too nice to live with, said Titus, but I guess that has to do with another secret that only parents share. Try not to be bitter, sweetheart. Lou gave him one of her sympathizing looks. Try not to be patronizing, he replied. Lou ignored this and got her bag. Okay, you 3, listen up. If Juni becomes unconscious again, or vomits, or starts acting weird, or God forbid has a seizure, call 911, then call me immediately. But 911 first, okay? Portia, you stay for dinner. I'll tell your mom when I see her at the clinic. Yes, ma'am. Okay, what time is it? We're past how long? We're 3 minutes past? Past the time it's supposed to end? Oh, wow. Thank you. I didn't even get to the good part. Thank you. And if you read the book, which is free at the gallery, I'd appreciate any feedback you have, you know. And if you know a young adult, like teenager, please pass it on. Thank you. Okay.